Bom bom bom
Be a man of bravery, kaukweka seke kwaha. Be a man of bravery, kaukweka seke kwaha. This is what you are, kaukweka sahoka. This is what you are, kaukweka sahoka. Be a man of bravery, kaukweka seke kwaha. Be a man of bravery, kaukweka seke kwaha.
Highlighting the significance of youth development empowerment in Namibia by, amongst others, fostering personal, entrepreneurial and professional growth is just but one of the objectives of this year's National Skills Competition, Ongudiva Skills Conference. Now, the ongoing competition seeks to explore the potential of emerging sectors as avenues to create employment opportunities for young people, discussing the role of especially the fourth industrial revolution in accelerating youth as well as development and enhancing employability, just to mention a few. A very good evening and a particularly warm welcome to yet another edition of Skills Talk. My name is Denver Kissing, your host for this episode, alongside Madame Aunia Ashikuti Nyoma, our sign language interpreter for this episode. Now tonight we focus on the registration of training providers and the very important TVET policy. And joining us to unpack these very important matters, I'm joined by an esteemed panel. Again, Dr. Raimonanda, Deputy Executive Director in the Ministry of Higher Education, Technology and Innovation. Good evening, Doctor, and welcome back to Skills Talk.
Good evening, Denver. Good evening, viewers. It's always a pleasure for me to be on this platform to educate the public on the reforms that we are busy with in the Ministry of Higher Education, Technology and Innovation.
The pleasure is in fact ours, Doctor, to have you back. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Also joining us this evening is Mr. Francois Strauss. He's the manager responsible for registration, mentoring and support at the Namibia Training Authority. Good evening to you, sir, and welcome to Skills Talk.
Thank you, Denver. Good evening to the listeners. And thank you very much for this opportunity that we can join in to bring awareness to our stakeholders out there. Thank you very much.
And because we're making it practical, we're talking TVET matters, men and women on the ground. We're joined this evening by Mr. John Kashwetu Fernando Ngauto VTC Rundu in the Kavango East region. Good evening to you, sir, and welcome to Skills Talk.
Very good. Good evening, viewers and the listeners. I am happy to be at this platform today.
We're very happy to have you.
Yeah.
Now, we have it on very good authority, Mr. Fernando, that you are known as Mr. Ngatu, actually. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. 100%.
So you become one with the entity.
Yeah, of course. I was named after the entity. Yeah.
Very well.
Yeah.
While you have the floor, just very briefly, what has your experience been of the National Skills Competition on Gudiva 2023 in general, but also the conference in particular this week? Perhaps before you respond to that question, I'd just like to inform our viewers that because this is a competition, especially the Boilermakers are burning the midnight oil tonight. They are in a race against time because they do all want to emerge as the winner, but there can only be one winner. So if you hear ambience in the background, please do bear with us. Our sincere apologies. Yes, sir.
Yeah, actually, it's a very good learning environment, even for us who are having VTCs or training providers at large. Seeing our students being into the action, doing the real work that we always give to them when it comes to training at school, knowing that they are many of young artisans that are coming up to see that how they can also participate in competition, not only thinking of going in the industry, but also thinking of becoming part of the competitions which we always used to have. For example, like what we have last year for the World Skill, which was held in Swakopmund. We have learned that there is a challenge here and there. You can see that some of the young artisans, they are still young at level 1 and level 2 and so forth. But it also encouraged us so that when we go back to our center, we'll be, I think, giving more practical from outside of the box so that at least times comes as this one, children can be able to come and participate more. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the comprehensive overview on your take of the competition in general and then the conference in particular. Mrs. Strauss, you of course representing the NTA this evening, and you are the custodian entity behind all of this. We have to acknowledge the hard work that went into all of this prior to the commencement of the competition and the conference, but certainly also during. But that also means that we are cognizant of your positive bias. But notwithstanding that positive bias, what has your experience been of the week thus far?
Thank you very much, Denver, for that question. Viewers, it's definitely a trendsetter what vocational education and training is bringing for everyone. We are showcasing that the international platform here locally, what is the expectation of our market, our sector, and what is leading in the fourth industrial revolution. Definitely, we find that there's still a lot of gaps that needs to be filled. And on that platform, you can see where we have to improve. And definitely, we are competing internationally. And when you want to compete internationally, you have to build it locally. And that is what we are doing here. We are building our confidence locally. We are skilling our workforce, our labor force. And even at the early level, in a very level 1 and level 2, the skills is demonstrated at the international level. And you will see the results as we go next year to France. What is the investment that was made this far, and what will be the achievements that will be made? So the week this far is an exciting week. It was a week with opportunities. It was a week that provided positive inputs with positive outcomes. It had enriched the lives of young Namibians, and that is what is the takeover from here.
Thank you so much. Are you seeing to it that all the institutions responsible for TVET who will join you on the way to France next year are integrating a bit of French in their curricula?
Definitely, French and foreign languages is already part of our curriculum, and definitely it's a very important thing that we are mentioning here is that our competitors must be a little bit fluent in the local language French when they are abroad. As a foreign language, let's help them, let's develop them and get them ready for the engagement. France will welcome them in the international language of English, but it's also to their advantage if they can speak a little bit French.
Je parle un petit peu français.
Oui.
Very well. Thank you so much, Mr. Strauss. Dr. Nanda, we're very happy to have you back. You're leading by example all week. You're a leader who doesn't hesitate to get his hands dirty and show exactly what needs to be done. You don't only instruct, but you also actually do the work. What has your experience been of the week thus far? What is your take on progress?
I must say, I'm overwhelmed. I'm excited of what has happened during the week. I could not believe when I arrived here on the first day, there was nothing set up on this premises. But today, we are in the second day of the competition. Everything is going well. Tomorrow would be the end of the competition. And on Saturday evening, we'll be announcing the winners that will go to France. I must say, like what my colleague have said, a lot of work has gone into here, and we are very happy for what the NTA has done to showcase what we are doing in the sector.
Very well, Doctor. Thank you very much for that take. Now, when we touched base with you 2 nights ago, Tuesday evening on this platform, you at length unpacked the TVET policy of the country, and you also very transparently explained to us how long of a gap we had before we revised the policy. But the good news is that the new policy is finally on the table. For those viewers who may not have tuned in Tuesday evening and have not had time to watch the stream in the meantime, just for purposes of tonight's broader discussion, could you touch on the fundamentals of the revised TVET policy, please?
Yeah. You see, when we revised this policy, we had in mind to reform the Namibian education, Namibian TVET sector. Now, what we had in mind is to make our TVET system the Singapore of TVET in Africa.
Wow.
The Singapore of TVET in Africa. In other words, what we are saying is to make the Namibian TVET system the best of the best in Africa or even in the world. Now, this TVET policy was drafted to address a number of specific objectives. The first objective is to improve on governance. The second objective is to improve or to increase access to TVET programs. The third objective was to improve quality and relevance of TVET. Research and innovation was non-existent in TVET, and this is one of the areas that we are seeking to introduce and to capacitate and to build capacity of research and innovation and entrepreneurship in the TVET sector. The fourth and last objective is to mobilize funding. TVET is a very, very expensive academic system, and therefore what we need to do is to see how best we can mobilize funds to meet our objectives as set out in the TVET policy.
Thank you so much, Doc. Mr. Fernando, I'd like to gauge your take on the revised TVET policy, specifically as far as these objectives are concerned. Dr. Nanda explained to us how big a challenge financing is, and you would certainly know that it's a big problem, seeing that you run an institution. We do know that a governance structure and a solid governance structure is critically important. There have also been complaints intermittently about the quality of the graduates that the TVET programs produce, and certainly also to have a look at how do we enhance access to TVET programs. So what is your take on what the revised TVET policy makes provision for?
Yeah, as he just said, it's very good that we are even meeting today here, because I've been following him several times on several issues mentioning so far. Looking at these policies, it already has outlined one of the biggest area, which is now funding. We may look at that area as a big problems when it comes to students, because currently many of the young ones or the youth or the school leavers, they are getting these challenges of coming to TVET just because of not accessible in terms of the charges that we charge in order for them to be part of the academic. But however, the market itself, it is going hand in hand with the industry. Though there is funding which we as Gato VTC, we also receive from NTA, which we appreciate so much, because without the NTA then there is no exist of Gato VTC either.
But don't you think that tertiary institutions in general, but also VTCs, need to rethink their financing models? We cannot wait on government alone in order to see to it that we make ends meet. We need to generate our own revenue and do so sustainably.
Yeah, that can be an area, but it's very hard at a time looking at our clients, for example, because these people who are coming to us are people from difficult backgrounds, for example, disadvantaged groups. And if we look, for example, as I said, when we look at the market, putting off our prices at a certain area, which we cannot meet the people at hand. That's why we rely to the government to do funding, so that at least that is accessible and affordable by the community.
Fair enough, fair enough. Thank you so much. Mr. Strauss, we'll gauge your take in a moment about that particular aspect. That could be a bone of contention from time to time, right? True to our form, we do value consistency, and we have been bringing you highlights of the different days. So we're going to do exactly that and take a short break for it. Welcome back. You're tuned in to Skills Talk here on NBC One. Dr. Nanda, having seen the highlights of today, I'm thinking very seriously about changing my career trajectory and perhaps also going into a TVET sector. Do you think I'm too old for it?
No, you are never too old.
There's no such thing.
No, there's no such a thing. You must think about lifelong learning, and that's what you want to do.
Absolutely.
We want to encourage everybody from young to adults to join TVET programs.
Kisting bricklaying has a particular ring to it, I would say.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Strauss, I'd like to gauge your take on the issue relating to financing. And we do understand that it requires all hands on deck. We do understand that it is a collaborative effort to see all of this through. However, it's not a walk in the park. What is your take?
Thank you very much for that question. Funding is always standing central when we talk about training. And without funding, a training provider will not be able to meet these obligations to service his client, to train the Namibian child, to train a young entrepreneur, to train an artisan, to train the next generation of artisans building our economy. And definitely when we talk about funding, it's first about the availability of funds, whether it's through government, whether it's through levy, whether it's from different other sources that we are sourcing to assist a training provider out there. Remember, we are not assisting directly the training provider, but it's actually the Namibian child, the student that we are funding to enable him to complete his studies, not just studies, to be the next entrepreneur, to positively contribute to the economy of the country, to develop the GDP and to also assist in that regard. Definitely training providers in that space need to be registered so to enable these learners to be funded, these trainees to be funded and taken into the next level.
You're preempting my next question for you, Mr. Strauss. Unfortunately, in 2023, we also encounter fly-by-night training providers. People who are alleged to be able to provide training and that they have the requisite qualifications. Yet, that is not the case at the end of the day. Please talk to us about what it is that your division within the NTA does to see to it that compliance is the order of the day.
Thank you very much. And that is a very, very important stand also from the NTA board going forward, that quality assurance must be 100%. Training providers must be registered. And that is the take from the onset. And we are ensuring this year to ensure that you will not be assisted with any kind of form of funding. You will not be assisted with any kind of assessment or anything else if you are not registered. That privileges and perks comes for being registered. And being registered is not that difficult. It's an achievable task and a very straightforward one. And we want to go out to the listeners and the viewers tonight to encourage you to contact the NTA and inform us of any fly-by-night training provider that is not registered. Definitely, we find training providers whose registration had lapsed. Even them, they have to apply with NTA for re-registration 3 months before your period of registration is lapsing. Otherwise,
you're mentioning a critically important point. So as a registered training provider, if my registration lapses in December this year, I need to see it that by September, more or less, I need to lodge my application for re-registration to still be in compliance. Am I understanding you correctly?
That's correct. Then you meet the requirements for re-registration.
In the event that I get to your office in November this year, with tears in my eyes, telling you all sorts of life happened to me that rendered me unable to meet that 3-month requirement, I would like to very please apply for condonation for this late re-registration. What will you do?
Definitely. Regulation 300 guides us that you then apply for registration because you went out of the 3 months period already. Even if you meet the day that your registration is lapsing, we're still providing you 14 days after that deadline still to apply within that 14 days for registration then, and so that you can be an eligible training provider as such.
But once that final period has lapsed, it's over.
That's over. And then we pull the plug on you. You have to close your doors, you have to shut down, we have to publish a notice that you are no more offering training, and from that day onwards, we will have then a discussion with you as the training provider as well as the students, the trainees at that institution to move them to a registered institution.
Well,
and
I can continue offering training, I'll just not be a registered entity.
You need to offer training. as a registered entity. And even if you don't offer training, that is also not compliant then, because the purpose of you being registered is to offer training.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Fernando, are you a registered training provider?
Yeah, we are registered.
When does your registration lapse, the current one?
We just did our re-registration, I think it was in March. The good part of registration and the re-registration with NTA, once you are registered with NTA, then you become partners, for example, to say, because they keep informing you, even telling you before time that your re-registration is due. So that give us a period, or it really encourage us so that even if you forgot, they will remind you through their department to give you a reminder that you have to work on your registration.
So you must really be resting on your laurels
Of course.
to let your registration lapse.
What's happened is that because when you, for example, when you are given, when you are doing the re-registration, only it become a problem if you are adding other subjects. For example, you are adding other courses, and then that means the registration, the date of the registration will not be new, but it will have to take the other date or other period that was given from the birth of registration.
Critically important clarification, which brings us to the next point for you. What is it that you have on offer?
Excuse me?
In terms of courses, what are you offering?
We started with office administration. That was back then in 2016. That was our first courses that we have to get registered with NTA by the advance that we got from NTA. And then back in 2019, we also added electrical general, level 1 to level 3. And in 2020, we added welding. In 2021, we added solar. And now in 2023, we added occupational health, level 4 and 5. Counseling, level 3 and 6.
Wow.
And we also have another branch in Okongo, in the Hangwena region, where we are going to have aircon and refrigeration. It was just recently audited, and it's up to now for decision by the NTA to see if we can get also that registrations approval.
Mr.
and
Strauss
so
is
forth.
looking at you.
Yeah.
Very well. I just want to quickly touch on office administration. Last night we heard that embracing the fourth industrial revolution, amongst others, could mean that we no longer need office administrators. You dial a number and then a machine tells you where to go, what to do, what button to press next. And it's one thing to embrace technology. It's one thing to accept that perhaps we don't have a choice. This is where we are at. I think it's something else to mitigate the impact of the fourth industrial revolution and to see to it that our programs are also reflective of the times as they change. And we do know that they change in real time. So if we have regard to a course such as office administration, what would your take be on its continued relevance and what strides you are making to see to it that you tweak and adjust accordingly if possible?
Yeah, actually we have been in the process whereby it has been an issue of saying it's going out, and because of the digital way where we are getting into, that's why we have pushed up to level 4. As we are standing now, we have up to level 4, and we are only encouraging those who are in the industry already to come and register for level 4, so that at least by that time they could be having the qualification at that level, because these are the people that are already into the industry, those who are already working and so forth. But we are not concentrating much on level 1 and 2 and 3. We are only taking up for the highest level, which is level 4, and where we are also encouraging them to go to NAST to further on the other level of qualification. For example, we just launched with UNAM Rundu campus. Now they launch management of master in business management, where we have also a communication to say if our students can also be able to be part of that qualification, who went through that office administration from level 4.
Thank you so much. Doctor, returning to the policy, if we're talking about the policy furthering development within the TVET sector, specifically as far as quality is concerned, but also access, is what Mr. Fernando is sharing with us in line with that objective of the revised policy?
Yes, he is in line. Of course, what I need to point out is that we need to increase access without necessarily the public investing in more public infrastructures. And that's why private providers such as Ngado Training Center is very crucial in this reform process. What we need to do is to ensure that these institutions are quality assured, to make sure that their programs are accredited, they've got the necessary infrastructure, the qualified trainers, and all those requirements as set out in the regulations. So what he is saying is absolutely correct. What Mr. Strauss is saying is correct. We need to make sure that these institutions are complying with the legislation that is available in the country.
Doc, but do we have enough hands? Do we have enough capacity to see to it, to vet every single institution in terms of compliance, in terms of adherence? We did speak during the course of the week also about dealing with the duplication of tasks, whether it's on account of the NTA, the Namibia Qualifications Authority, the National Council on Higher Education, and certainly also the Line Ministry. We do want to streamline, but we still want to establish whether or not we have enough hands to execute.
Of course, if you go into a reform process, you need to make sure that you have the necessary instruments in place. Now, you are talking about the overlapping and duplicating functions. Of course, the policy is addressing these issues. Now, what we need to do is to capacitate the institutions that will be mandated to do quality assurance, to make sure that they have the necessary human resources, they have the necessary skills to go and do out there and do inspections.
But do we have the skills at the moment, Doctor, yes or no?
We do have the skills.
Enough of the skills.
What we are currently doing is we are using experts from the industry to assist us to do some of these inspections.
And they are not biased, these experts, because they are part of the industry.
No, they are not biased, because there are set regulations that they need to follow when they are doing these audits for these particular institutions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor. Mr. Strauss, talk to us about the challenges that you encounter regarding training providers and compliance.
Thank you very much for that question, Denver. And definitely our training providers out there, they are servicing our stakeholders, as earlier mentioned, alluded to, the Namibian child and the students and the sector at large. And what is very critical for us is that these training providers needs to comply with Regulation 300. Regulation 300 was endorsed and service since December 2012, and does require providers to comply. Definitely we find, as you earlier mentioned, the fly-by-nights who would love to offer training and do not want to register, who's adamant to say it's no need to register. We find providers who do not want to follow Regulation 300. And to ensure that, we had go on a road campaign and we had visited training providers to discuss with them Regulation 300, to book the understanding of Regulation 300, what is the requirements related to the regulation, guiding them on the registration, the compliance with the registration as such. We do find that there out is providers who don't want to register, as mentioned. We find providers who find it difficult to register. We also find challenges where training providers is not complying with the requirements as set out. And to name a few is that they need to have a good standing with NAMRA, which we are also the gatekeepers to ensure that any entity out there meets that requirement. We further require that the providers must have a fitness certificate to operate as a provider. Remember, in that space, human lives can be affected if a building is not meet and not compliant. And that is a challenge sometimes because providers apply late or they omit not to apply at all, and then they meet at registration that they have to meet these requirements, and a few more that is required from them to meet. And above all of that, they need to have qualified trainers. So the day when you start planning your institution, ensure three things: that you have the human capital, you have the tools and equipment and the facility, and you have the proper curriculum that you will be offering. Ensure that you offer a national program. Many providers came with their own program, or they will come with a franchise program, which is sometimes challenging, but it's easier to go with a national program, offer a national program with a national assessment and a national certification. If you follow this route, the simple, free, key ingredients, you will be a successful provider. What we do find challenge at this moment as well is that as we move with fourth industrial revolution and meet the requirements of Sector Skills Plan 2, which is the need of our sector, we need to develop new programs in hydrogen, oil and gas, blue economy, and a lot more, which we do not have that skills available in country to develop the program, and we have to rely on franchise programs to bring into the country to unpack that for us.
Important point. How often do you encounter fly-by-night entities?
Well, a fly-by-night will come and will tell you in very simple terms that he's not offering national training, he's not offering. But first of all, what is a training provider? Anyone who wants to transfer skills, and specifically, he wants to transfer skills in a set environment which is competing with the national qualifications as large. So definitely, we do find them in that space often, that they are operating in that space and would like to overcome and take over the registered providers' services by offering a fly-by-night service.
You're saying often, once a week, twice a week?
If we walk out of here and we were driving down the street, we will find 3 or 4 or 5 in the street. Yes.
Do they need to be reported to the police as well?
Regulation 300 paves provision and says that you do not you are not allowed to operate as a training provider. It's an offense. You can be charged.
A criminal offense?
Yes, it's a criminal offense. You can be charged 2,000 Namibian dollar fine or 6 months imprisonment or both.
Very well. I hope the message is clear. Mr. Ngatu, talk to us about Plan 2. We have to be cognizant of the new emerging industries, such as green hydrogen and certainly oil and gas. How are you and other stakeholders within the TVET sector seeing to it that you develop local skills for trainers to ultimately capacitate Namibian students to take up space within those sectors?
Very good question. In that area, when we speak about green hydrogen, we already started on the other line of solar installation and maintenance, which is one of the qualifications which is offered by, developed by NTA. We does have that at the ground at level 1 and 2. In the way to go is that only that some of the other occupation, like for oil and gas, in the region where we are, it is too much of far from of our resources that we have. But in terms
But you're
of
close to the oil.
all this oil is
You
still.
are at the oil.
Of course, we are on the oil, but this oil is still under. We do not see yet the oil, so that's one of the things, and we are not accessible to the area of where the oil is.
The problem is
Yeah.
we can't wait for the green hydrogen to be produced, for the
Yeah.
green ammonia. We cannot wait for us to see the oil.
Yeah.
We have to capacitate ourselves as Namibians right now, so that by the time it's visible to the naked eye,
Yeah.
we are ready, sir.
Yeah, that is in that area where we are only starting now with solar. We want to focus more a bit on solar because we at this Kavango region we have enough suns and we want to go in that area. But with time as goes, we will be able to see if we can also meet and have these artisans trained and people in that field.
Very
as
well.
The future comes.
Thank you so much. Dr. Nanda, we are heading to France come 2024. In terms of benchmarking, but also in terms of seeing what other jurisdictions can perhaps learn from us, benchmarking is a two-way street. It's not a cul-de-sac. From your international exposure, what do you make of what we as Namibian TVET graduates and institutions have to offer to the international platform?
I must say, I was very, very fortunate to attend the International World Skills competition that took place in 2017 in Abu Dhabi. And I could see that Namibia, we are not lagging far behind. Our students, our trainees performed exceptionally well. And I must say one of our competitors there was selected to become the ambassador for the World Skills International Organization for the youth for that following year. And that demonstrates that we are doing well. Of course, we need to learn more. We need to do more for our competitors to win. Now, you see, if you participate at these international levels, the standards are very, very, very high. And what we need to do, we need to use these platforms to really see how best we can prepare our trainees to participate at that level. So the benchmarks are very high, but I must say that we are not lagging far behind. We are there and we are doing well as a country.
And which is hotter, Abu Dhabi or the Oceania region?
No, my brother, Abu Dhabi or France, it's just like a World Cup.
Yes.
Look at how we performed during the World Cup.
And you're attributing that to the heat.
Yes.
Different conversation, different day, Doctor, but point well noted. Mr. Strauss, from your perspective, what is it that the NTA needs to do in collaboration with stakeholders to see to it that ultimately we get qualified graduates from registered institutions who can contribute to the country's gross domestic product, as you had alluded to earlier?
Thank you for that question, Denver. Definitely, our stakeholders out there needs to improve on quality. We need to enhance every opportunity that is there and harvest it to ensure that our trainers is of excellent standard. We need to upskill them. We need to ensure that they are up to date and also qualified at least one level higher than the level that they are offering training, at a minimum of level 4. Because that is why the trendsetter is going at this moment. We have stopped the registration of assessment practitioners due to the fact that they are underqualified and not meeting the requirements as assessment practitioners. Because we need and we have seen the need to work on the quality of our trainers, work on the quality of our assessment practitioners to improve.
Whose fault is it and whose problem does it become?
The TVET sector in Namibia is a long-standing TVET sector. And to some extent, the sector had stagnated at a level 3 qualification in most of the qualifications. Now, if
That's
the trainer,
an important concession, Mr. Strauss. Thank you for your transparency.
if the trainer is qualified at a level 3 and he's training at a level 3 and he's assessing at a level 3, he is not meeting the requirements.
There's a problem there.
He can only assess at level 2, he can only train at level 2, and he had to walk away from that institution, not be able to assess level 3 or train level 3. And the training provider cannot afford. So we are now in the developing stages where we are developing all those other outstanding levels to increase and improve and to comply with that requirements that we have. We embarked in 2016, 2021 with an initiative where we upskill our trainers to level 6. We took them international and we start training our trainers at level 6 to meet that requirements. Unfortunately, not everybody had met that level yet. And we are still developing our trainers, and that is part of the VET Act 1 of 2008 to ensure the upskilling of our trainers.
And ultimately, it's everyone's responsibility and everyone's problem if we don't all do something about it.
Definitely.
Thank you, Mr. Strauss. Gentlemen, I wish we had the entire night to unpack these very important matters, but we don't. We've run out of time. Mr. Ngatu, Mr. Fernando, from your perspective, what do you believe is the way forward? Being cognizant of the strides that we've made in the TVET sector, but certainly also being cognizant of the persisting challenges and gaps. What do you think needs to be done tonight so that we can move forward?
Just to say a few is that I think in Tibet, actually things are happening, and there is a lot of changes that is taking place since when I came into the industry. Looking at how the ministries are getting parcel of the Tibet sectors and how everybody is talking about Tibet sector itself, encouraging the young youth and those who are in line with the Tibet. All I say is that we are looking forward and see that the Tibet have to grow in a way that we will have enough of what we think we have to achieve to meet at the end of the day.
We heard this week from a UNAM student representing the Student Representative Council that the perception exists among young people. Only those who didn't make it academically land in the TVET sector. What do you have to say to such people in 30 seconds?
Yeah, actually that is the known which is everywhere. And sometimes when during our market times, you speak to young youth. For example, if you go to schools, those who are having secondaries for grade 12 and 11, when you are talking to them, they will tell you, no, me, I'm not going there. I'm going to UNAM. I'm going to NAST and so forth. But
And
they
let's
are-
say if they don't make it there, they come to
they
you.
come to you. But their understanding when they are looking at the product that the artisans or the graduate from TVET are taking out, and mainly most of them who are having this company, who are employing them, they are TVET graduates.
Thank you. Mpandu Unene.
Very good.
Yeah. Mr. Strauss, is there light at the end of this particular tunnel that is not a welding machine?
Definitely. Myself was an apprentice. I started my days as an apprentice, and I have climbed the highest ladder that was there in the artisan world. I embarked onto the academic world, and I do not see the end yet.
Level 10.
Opportunities are there. I'm currently studying at Rhodes University. I'm a student of Rhodes University, and I've foreseen that I'm going to level 10. Thank you for that blessing, and I'm receiving it. And that is how we should perceive our opportunities. Never lock down opportunity. Open up opportunity. Open up my opportunity for my brother. Open up my opportunity for my sister next to me, my brother in this regard. And let's take hands and ensure that everybody is taken forward and no one is left behind.
Baie dankie, meneer Strauss. Doctor, you have the final brief word this evening.
Yes. Let me tell you, with the way we have crafted the TVET policy, all the challenges that we are experiencing today will be something of the past if we implement this policy to the letter and spirit. The challenge that we have as Namibia is we are known to have very beautiful policies, but when it comes to implementation, that's where we are failing as a country. And that is the only fear that I have. If we do not implement this policy by letter and spirit, we will continue with all the challenges that we are experiencing in the country. So my advice is, let us implement the policy. The resources are there, the will is there, the commitment is there, the dedication is there. If we can go that route, I promise you, Namibia will be having one of the best TVET systems, if not in Africa, in the world at large.
Tapandula
I
Unene,
thank you
Doctor.
very much.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your expertise. And may the Namibian TVET sector grow from strength to strength.
Thank you.
We certainly would like to thank Nictus Ongwediva for our beautiful set. And that concludes this episode of Skills Talk. Good night.